Hi, I hope you're doing well. And I thought it would be cool to try it on Neovim. So I'm learning a little bit about Lua, and I already did some things with Neovim. I already installed it and configured the leader key, and I'm going to show you what I have right now. At the end of the video, you're going to see my full IDE ready. So first thing that I did was, like I always do this when I'm learning something, I do a big document about the things that I'm learning. I wrote all of this based on this video. This is a TJDV video. I got a little bit confused in the meta tables, so I went to the Lua documentation and it was a little bit clearer. And here I have the documentation with Neovim, like the steps that I did. Here are the commands I'm trying to get used to the Neovim motion. So here's basically what I've done. I have my terminal here. I did a WSL install, and because I've already installed it, it just launched it for me. So I also did these commands here on the WSL, apt update and apt install Neovim. Then I configured this folder, that .config folder, and here I have the Neovim. And here in the nvim folder, I have init Lua in a Lua folder. So I can press nvim dot to open nvim in this directory. Here we have the explorer, the netrw, and here on the init.lua I just have this config.options. This config comes from the Lua folder. In the Lua folder I have a config folder with the options.lua file. So in there I have some key bindings and some configurations, so I can just press, instead of doing column and then EX, to go to the Explorer. And because of the key bindings I can press space CD and I go back to the Explorer, which, you know, it's cool, but Fuzzy Finder and, you know, Telescope, the other plugins that I'm going to install in the future, I think they will be pretty awesome. So here I have this Lua folder. Inside here I have a config folder, and inside here I have these options and these key bindings. In the options I just put a number so I could see the numbers here. There's this cursor line, which I wrote it wrong. Cursor, yeah. But I didn't enable this this option because it looks kind of weird on my computer, on my terminal. So column W is to write files, and column SO is to source the file. And yeah, I have this weird line. I thought the whole line would be highlighted, but it's just this line. It's kind of weird. So I'm just going to comment this for now. W again, SO, and it didn't work, so I'm gonna quit. I also enable these relative numbers, which you can see that the line that I'm on is showing the current line. Like you can see that there's a 4 on the line that I'm on because I'm in the line 4, and the distance to the first line is 3. So if I press 3K, yeah, I jump to the first line, and if I press now 3J, I jump to the fourth line. So K is to go up, J is to go down, and when you press a number and K, it is going to move that many times up, and press another number in J, you're going to move that many times down. And I've also changed the shift to width to before. So if I do like if, it is going to give me 4 spaces instead of 8, which is pretty cool. So here's where I have this key binding. I have here the map leader. I am mapping this space, and I have a key map set to the normal mode, having the leader and then CD, which which for me means change directory, is going to execute this vim command. So I'm going to source this file because it is not working right now. Now I can go to the init.lua and also require that file. So I found that I can select many lines by Shift I, by Shift V. I go into visualize mode, and then Shift Y, I yank it, and then Shift P, I paste it. Key binds, exit insert mode. To go to insert mode, you just press I, and then you go to insert mode and you press S, and you go back to normal mode. Now column W, save the file, and maybe if I press space CD, oh, space CD, yeah. So I'm actually going to quit Neovim and go back inside again and go inside of files, space CD, and it's working. Okay, so I have added a little bit more to this file. So the first thing that I've added is this plugin manager, this package manager, Vim, and I copied this code straight from their website. This one, lazy.folkit.io, and here's the installation. You just copy this file and paste it on your lazy.lua. I was doing this following this video, this Tony guy, with how to install and configure Neovim. So I've added the package manager. I have added a theme, a color theme, and telescope, and added some keybinds. And I also had to install this build essential because I had some problems with the C compiler when I tried to use tree-seeder. So here's what I have now, nvim dot, and you can see that now I have this cool theme, and instead of having that line, that underline that I had before, because of the theme, now I have this background line, which is pretty cool. Here on my init Lua, I'm just importing the options, the keybinds, the lazy module, and I also have, because of telescope, I have this fuzzy finder here, and I can type lazy and go to the lazy Lua file, and here's the file. It looks like we are cloning a GitHub repository from lazy.nvim. Then we require this lazy and do the setup. I don't really know how this works. Here on the options file, I took off the comment here and I turned it on this cursor line, but everything remains the same. And on the keybinds, I have added this clipboard, unnamed plus, and then these maps here, because I wanted to copy the code from nvim to my clipboard system, and it wasn't working, so I searched a little bit and found this solution out. Basically, in Neovim you have these registers, which are, each key can be a register, and instead of doing this command, which is double quote and then the plus, which is the register, and then Y, which is the yank, so we are yanking the text to this register, and this register is our system clipboard. Instead of doing all of this command, I just press leader, which is space, as we have here on this map leader. We press space and then Y to yank, and this double Y is just to yank one line. Like, I could press here, like, I'm going to open my notepad, and if I wanted to copy just one line, I could press here space YY, and here I can press Ctrl V, and I copied the whole line, just one line, if I want to copy just one line. So here I can go to visualize mode and to the end of the file with uppercase G, capital G, and then I can yank it with space Y. Now I can paste it here. So I have this leader double Y to yank one line without selecting it, and then leader one eye to yank the whole thing when it is selected in the visualization mode. So I have added these keybinds, the options stay the same. This lazy.lua and this lazy.lua, which is, I think, one of the most important. This is managing this plugins folder. I think that's what it's doing here on this import. When we say import plugins, it is actually going through our plugins folder in the Lua folder, but I can't say it for sure. But here on the plugins, we have colors, telescope, and tree-seater for now. The first one that I added was the colors. Now I'm using cat pushing nvim. I have also added Dracula, which is the one that I use on VS Code, but it doesn't look very good, so I like this one more. This line here is just to make the background transparent, and this line here, this nvim tree, nvim web dev icons, it's that line on the bottom with normal colors.lua, the name of the file, the mode that we are on, and then we have the Linux icon there and the language. Pretty cool, the bar is very nice. Now the next thing that I added was telescope. So telescope, I also copied from their GitHub page. You can just follow that Tony Guy video, pretty cool. And here we have the leader FF to open our fuzzy finder, the find file, so leader FF. And here we have all the files. It's better when it is so space FF, and we open the files, and here we can see their content, go through them. We can search for words that are in here. So fuzzy means that fuzzy is actually a technique, it's not the name of this thing. Fuzzy is a technique to find the letters that we are typing inside those words. So if I type like I, N, you can see that we have an I and we have an N in this order, in these files and in this folder. So here on plugins we have IN, keybinds we have IN, on the options we also have an I and then the N. So pretty cool. We also can press space FG, and this is the live grep, and we can search for anything that is inside our files. So if I wanted to see everywhere that we have the require board, here's all the places that we have it. Then we have find buffer. I don't really know what is the purpose of this. And we have this find help, which we can basically find help for anything, like any method, any property, anything that we want to know, how does it work, it is inside here. So for example, with telescope, you have all of this documentation. If there's something that you don't know how it's working, you can read these big files here. So here we have tree-seater, which I don't really understand what it is, but it highlights, it indents our file, and here we have some languages that it can work with. I know that this is not a LSP, but I don't know what it is or how useful is this. Like, why after I used tree-seater it could change the colors within the text without being a LSP. And I also have a problem here. If I go to visualize mode, go to the end of the file, and then I press equals, it indents all the way to the left, and I don't know why, but I'm going to find out. And also LazyVim generated this JSON files. I think this is how LazyVim finds the plugins and manages them, but again, I don't really know how this works. But it's pretty cool. I'm going to set up to work with C sharp, and I'm going to work it for a little while, and then I'm going to give you my final thoughts of what I think about Neovim. And yeah, see you in a while. So it's been a big while, a lot has changed, and I'm going to show you what I have now with my Neovim configuration. So I have installed this plugin called Oil, and it basically displays the folders and the files in a pretty nice way inside a buffer. And I can treat this like a file and create folders and files inside here just by writing. So I can make a test folder with a test.sh, and then I just hit save, and it's going to ask to create the folder and the file. Here's my init.lua. There's actually a lot of things that have changed. It's been about a month since I did the last piece, with the video. So basically now I have an LSP for everything. I have a Tailwind, a plugin, CSS, HTML. This is another LSP for Lua because the previous one was kind of laggy. For C, for YAML, and Roslyn, this is for C sharp, and the one for TypeScript and JavaScript and JSON and MDX analyzer. So now I have 3 folders inside my Lua folder, and I have the config with the keybinds, and the lazy is, I think it's the same, I guess. Now I have some options here, and I have some icons here for the diagnostic of, the LSP. If the LSP says there's some errors or warnings or information, these icons are going to be displayed. And there's a little bit more of keybinds here. I've added just a few lines of keybinds. I have installed this LazyGit. You actually have to install this, and Snacks, which is a plugin by the same guy that made Lazy. Snack integrates LazyGit with Neovim, and this is a pretty nice workflow. So I don't even know where to start here. These keybinds are, I guess they're personal, The cool thing about Neovim is that you make the IDE yours, You can customize even the Vim Motions like I have here. There's just a lot of flexibility in here. I still have to test the debugger. I think it's not working properly, but yeah, I just configured this in a way that I feel comfortable with. And I have here the LSP and some configurations for the LSPs that I'm using. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's a little bit more of plugins. I don't even remember what I had before. I have conform.nvim, which is a plugin that helps with the formatting. Here I have the DEP, which is the debugger something protocol. I don't even remember. And I don't know if this is configured properly. I have to test, and I haven't used Neovim for a while now. I love it. And there's a few more one-liners here that are not actually one-liners. I guess it doesn't really matter the configuration that you have or the stack that you work with. The greatest thing that I'd say about Neovim is the Vim Motions. They are just, you don't leave the keyboard, you don't have to grab your mouse, and I don't think that's a good or bad thing. And you can just navigate through the code and through your project just with these Vim Motions. And for example, you can combine the Vim Motions, which is pretty awesome, and I didn't realize that at first.
but I still need to learn about macros and regular expressions because I think that's a powerful thing here in Neovim. But these are the motions that I use the most, which is Y, that stands for yank, C for change, D for delete, F to find, I goes to insert mode, A means append, and the difference is with I you go one character to the left, and with A you go to the next character. And with the Vim Motions, I can basically just double click Y and I yank the line. I can double click D and I delete the line. I can double click C and I change the line. I can hit P and then I will paste whatever I deleted because it's not actually a delete, it is cutting to the Vim clipboard, I guess. There's also markers with M. You can put a marker on a line and then go to another file and then come back to the marker. And I don't remember how that's done. So, yep. Another cool thing is that you can delete inside something or around something. So let's say I want to delete everything that is inside these braces, so I can remove this pattern and this callback. So I can go DIB and I delete everything inside the braces. I guess to delete inside the curly braces, I think it's DI and then uppercase B. Yeah. And then you delete everything inside the curly braces. You can also go for another, special type of character. I can say DI and then quotes, and then this will delete whatever is inside the quotes. But I can also do CI in quotes, and then I will change whatever was inside here. And then I can also press YI in quotes, and I just basically yanked whatever was inside this quotes. I have also mapped JK in the insert mode to go out, to go back to the normal mode, because I was tired of reaching for the ask button. And I think the workflow is pretty awesome, just using the keys and the letter key and then a combination of keys and the Vim Motions all together. It's just a nice workflow to get to the right places and do the right stuff. So here are some final thoughts on Neovim. I think for complete beginners, someone who is starting to learn about programming, I don't think that's a good start, I guess. I think it's just going to be a lot. You'll have to learn about the code editor, and you'll have to learn about whatever language that you're learning and the concepts and everything. I think it might be better to start off with something like VS Code or Writer or Visual Studio, and maybe enable the Vim motions and try to learn them. Starting on Neovim is a bit, painful, I guess, because you just have to add all these plugins to work with your stack and configure everything. And this is a good thing about Neovim, because I thought with VS Code and all the other IDEs, I thought everything was just, you know, all together. Like, I thought the auto completion, the errors, everything was just part of the language. I didn't know that the IDE was actually implementing a language server protocol and a debugger adapter protocol. I didn't even know that was a thing. So it is actually good to go to Neovim, which I think it's a code editor, but it has the capability of becoming an IDE and your personal IDE. And it was actually great. It was a very nice experience. And I would suggest to anybody who's a junior, senior, or mid to try it out, Neovim. And yeah, it's pretty nice. And I have also installed Tmux, which is a terminal multiplexer. And I can basically just have like 3 Neovim instances opened and run projects and just it's great. It's a great workflow with Tmux and Neovim. And just a last note here, I had a great experience programming with JavaScript, with TypeScript, and C, but with C Sharp, it's a bit of a pain in the ass. With actually just C Sharp files like .cs files, it works. It works really well. Once again, I have to test the debugger, but with Razor files, it's not good. I have some problems with the syntax highlighting and with the formatting. The formatting is actually bad in VS Code too. And to work with Razor files, I actually use Writer, which has a great formatter. I think it's called ReSharper, and it isn't something that you can plug in into Neovim, I guess. But the great thing about all the other IDEs is that they have Vim Motions. So I guess Vim Motions is just that good because they have everywhere. So I hope everything in this video made sense to you, and I hope I have, I don't know, encouraged you to use Neovim or not. I don't know. I had a good experience with Neovim, and I think I'm just going to have this as my main IDE or code editor. And yeah, that's it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.